The story of American bread is the story of immigrants and the blending of cultures. Native Americans, European settlers, and African slaves all brought their baking traditions to this country. The mix gave rise to some uniquely American breads. There are few places in the world where the local bread is so singular that it becomes synonymous with the city of its origin. But when it comes to sourdough, everyone knows the city is San Francisco. Along the docks of Fisherman's Wharf is a new building that houses the oldest bakery in town, Boudin Sourdough Bakery. They've been using the same sourdough starter for the last 160 years.
I'm going to show you something that if I lose these, I have to shut the doors. I cannot make sourdough bread anymore if I lose these. But of course, we will not do that. But actually, I'm going to show you how it looks like. This piece of dough dates back to 1849. I've been taking care of it almost for the past 30 years. That's been my job, the caretaker of this baby.
These pots of fermented dough are created by mixing 1 part pre-fermented mother dough with 20 parts flour and water and left to sit for 1 day.
Okay, look at this. It's just a piece of dough yesterday that started very small. This is what flavors the sourdough, the famous San Francisco sourdough bread. Look at this, look at this. You break it up. It just gets you so strong. So I'm going to throw it in here and it's ready to go.
Sourdough bread requires no additional yeast because the mother dough is alive with local San Francisco yeast spores.
The weather here in San Francisco is so special. There's the spores go into this flour and water. It makes this special flavor. We only have these spores in this area. So like if you're trying to steal a piece, go ahead, take it. You can take it. I mean, we don't let you do that. But if you take it back to New York, then it's going to become a New York sourdough in about 30 days. Because you cannot take the weather back to New York.
20 pounds of mother dough is enough to provide the yeast for a 200-pound batch of sourdough.
Once the dough gets mixed, we gotta check to see if the dough is mixed correctly. The way you can tell that you stretch it very, very, very thin, very thin, very thin. You see that? How it's gonna be almost transparent, okay? That's how you can tell it's well developed. You see that? You can always see my face in there, right through, see that?
Once every 20 minutes, a tub of mixed dough, enough for 400 loaves of bread, is dropped down to a divider that cuts it into chunks, perfectly sized for a specific type of loaf. A conical shaper then rolls it into a ball that is carried by conveyor belt to a resting basket, where the dough can do its first rise. After a half hour in the rotating basket, the raised dough goes through a forming stage, where it's given its next shape. Breads are hand-stretched and gently shaped before they are wheeled into a cool, humidified closet.
Once the dough gets mixed and shaped and stretched, now it goes away for another day. So we can put it in here. We won't bake it until tomorrow.
Throughout the day at Boudin, tourists from around the world line up with locals to shop for this one-of-a-kind sourdough bread.
Hello and welcome to Boudin at the Wharf.
And many come to the Bakery Museum to hear the tale of an immigrant baker who was in the right place at the right time.
So the real story of Boudin is the gold rush. Now, a lot of people came to dig for gold, but a lot of people came to so-called mine the miners. And 1 year after the gold rush, there were 70 bakeries in San Francisco. And Boudin was one of them. Boudin is the only one that survived, and it's the oldest continuously operating business in the city.
The Boudins eventually sold the bakery to another immigrant baker.
My father, Steve Giraudo, came over in 1935 from Italy to San Francisco, and his first job was at Boudin Bakery, and everybody talks about artisan bread today. My father was one of San Francisco's authentic and original artisan bakers. But as he made his bread, we'd go to school and we'd have sandwiches, and we'd sit down at a bench in the schoolyard with all the kids that were eating peanut butter and jelly and, I don't know, mayonnaise sandwiches. They'd look on white bread, they'd look at us because the mustard would be falling out of our sandwiches because the bread had holes in it.
That bread with holes is now flying off the shelves at Boudin. But despite the increasing demand, each loaf still gets hands-on attention.
Storing the bread that is going to go into the oven After those 3 days that we talked about, this is the final step before it gets baked. It gets scored for looks. At the same time, it gets scored to release the gases so the bread comes out nice and even. Otherwise, if you just throw it in like this, it's going to burst to the weakest part of the skin. We got an oven that varies from about 400 to about 440 degrees. And then you also have to steam it. If you don't give it steam, it's going to look all gray. But this will give it a nice crust, and actually it will make it expand even more in the oven. You'll see that right now. Average time is around 20 to 30 minutes, depends on the size of the bread. And then press start. You'll feel the steam. And you see the steam coming out right now? Good loaf of bread. See that nice crusty color? Ooh, hot. See that crunchy? We chewy on the inside. The scores are very nice and even. You know, I mean, these lines here. And also, you know, you see you top it, make sure it's hollow. If it was, you can feel it if it's still underdone. It's a different sound. You see the echo? Beautiful. And then, look at that. How crunchy. Take a piece of these. Flour, water, and salt. Doesn't get any better than this. I love it. When it makes my day when I see there's something that started 3 days ago and it comes out to this good, I'm happy.